Okay, hi everyone. I'm back with Eli Cerda's portraiture project. Let's go ahead and take a look at the intro here. Okay, so let's go on to the first one. Okay, so we've got a series with your little girl, and this one looks really nice. Just take a look at your. Okay. Yeah, I'm very happy with how this one came out. It's a good idea to have that shallow depth of field. Um, I'm not sure where exactly your lighting was coming from, but it's nice and even. Um, it must have been that overcast weather we were having when that front blew in. It's a great composition. You've kind of more or less broken it up into thirds. This doesn't have to be exact. And I think it is really the facial expression is just great, especially because since the eyes are looking very, very direct off the page, it it introduces a little bit of a mystery, like, well, what's she looking at? And we'll never know. We'll never know what it is she's looking at. But she's looking at someone or something, and I like kind of having unanswered questions in pictures, especially something like this. So beautiful work on this one. Okay. Um, this one, it's a nice pose. It doesn't have what this one has, and I'm going to try to figure out why that is. What is working about this one that I'm not seeing in this one. The composition is fine. I wouldn't really change anything as far as positioning the subject. Um, it it's just the light isn't glowing as much on her face, and we've got this really washed out background. And this might be the kind of thing that you would need to maybe do some kind of editing or bracket, and you can bracket something like this and even just go ahead and bring the sky in from another photo or something. But I think what's happening is that it's got a lot of neutral going on. And since she's wearing predominantly this gray shirt, unfortunately, there's not that much distinction between the shirt and the sky, and so I think that might be part of it. I just think it would be a lot more interesting if the sky wasn't just so white, because I think if the sky was darker in some way, or more colorful or something, I think the face would stand out. But for whatever reason, in this situation, the face seems almost gray a little bit, and whether that's just editing or just sometimes things just appear a certain way. I think that it would probably be good to warm up the skin tones just a bit. They do look a little tiny bit ashy right here. Other than that, I mean, it's a great pose. It's in focus. Your subject's relaxed, and um, it's a really adorable picture. But it doesn't have what this one has, and I'm sure you can agree with me. When we go back and forth, I guess another thing is you got kind of closer to the face, and that's always very intriguing. But Yeah. Okay. So that was my thinking on that one. Let's see the next one. Okay. Now there we go. That is a great picture. Okay. This one, um, you've got a lot of interesting things going on. It's neat that you chose to use the black and white effect. Love the glasses she has on, but it's a great pose, shallow depth of field. You know, she really, even though it's dark hair up against a dark background, she seems to be standing out okay. This highlight along the top of her head seems to be enough, and there seems to be enough detail work in her hair that I think it works really really well. You know, you could possibly think of going in and lightening up that background just a little bit, but it's not really necessary. The position of the hands and everything is just, you know, spot on. And I really like what you've done here. You know, this is something that a lot of my students um, don't think to do, even though I'm constantly telling them, you know, you need to get down low, especially with children. And sometimes you have to get uncomfortable. And I'm sure that you would have been a lot more comfortable sitting some other way to photograph your daughter, but you wouldn't have gotten this, you know. And I really like that. It's just like a nice touch, you know, that it brings us, the viewer, in. You know, it brings us closer to her as well. You know, it kind of makes us feel almost like we're there. Um, you know, one other little area that I think I need to point out is it's gotten a little flat right in here. If you since you're shooting in RAW, I can almost guarantee you that there's more going on there than you think. You know, it might be that you have to mask everything else off to edit this area, but it may be that you need to, you know, bring out the highlights just selectively in this area. Because it's gone a little flat. So, you know, that's one, and here as well. You know, that's one of the things that we look for in black and white is, you know, how much detail are we retaining in the extreme ends of the value scale, of the, you know, the value spectrum. I mean, yeah, scale. Sorry. You know, the dark darks, we still need to be able to see a little bit of detail, and you know, same thing with the light highlights. But you know, these are all things that I'm pretty sure you've got. Um, Everything you need in that raw file to make these adjustments. It might be just a tad dark on the back of the hand right here, but you know, the important part is the shot. It's well composed, and it's you know, a great pose, and it's just a great you know, kind of emotion, you know, coming off of the subject. So nice work on that one. Okay. And let's see, this one, I think I'm going to say it almost hits the mark, but not quite. Of course, you know, it's like when you have when you have these following up after one like that, you know, so let's try to figure out why this one could be better. And here are a couple of thoughts that I have. Now, first thing, and this is really difficult to do, and you really kind of have to have your camera on manual focus, because if you use autofocus, it's going to, you know, probably try to zero in on whatever's closest to it. So, you know, right now, the thing that's in the sharpest focus is the giraffe. And if you look at the eyes, they're a little soft in comparison. And you know, one of the rules or principles or guidelines or whatever you want to call it about portraiture is if there is only one part of the picture in focus, it needs to be the eyes. You know, it's almost like you can get away with everything else being a little bit soft, but ideally, you need to be able to see her eyelashes as well as we're seeing, you know, the individual strands of, you know, material here on the giraffe. Now, one way you can do this, it's a pretty neat trick. Yeah, because see, you got your focus down here. It's just that you got your camera focused a little bit close. You know, the eyes are just a little farther away from us. So one little trick that you can do, because I think it's very difficult to, you know, take the photograph and look at it on your monitor on the back of your camera, and you know, ascertain whether it's in focus or not. But you've got the zoom in tool on your viewfinder. I mean, yeah, on your display on the back of your camera. Zoom all the way in as far as you can and focus on the eyes. And if you can zoom all the way in and see, you know, clearly defined individual hairs in the eyelashes, you know, you can be safe to say, okay, you know, the eyes are in focus. Because sometimes it's just really hard to tell. And the other thing I recommend is, um, you know, you definitely have to use manual focus when you're this close and you're using a shallow depth of field, and your subject is a little tiny bit farther away from us than some of the other stuff. The autofocus isn't going to be able to figure it out, and so that I think is something that I would change. Okay, now here's another thing that I think would make this image a little bit more dynamic. I don't feel like the composition is as balanced or as dynamic as it could be. There's one of two things I think that you could try. One is maybe moving the head over to here and including a little bit more of the elbow here so that the large piece of empty space, negative space, is behind her instead of in front of her, just because I know that there's going to be a diagonal, kind of where my cursor is pointing right here. There's going to be a diagonal right here where her arm is, and that's going to create a great kind of an implied line. And if you look at this, it's kind of cool because you've got the angle on the palm leaves here, and it is about the same, you know, degree angle as if you were able to extend this arm all the way out. And so what would happen is you've got kind of a sense of continuity, you know, where you're kind of almost picking up one of the lines from here and, you know, picking it up again over here. Okay, now that's one thing that you could do. It might still be a little bit awkward. Whoops, sorry about that. It might still be a little bit awkward with her looking off the page, but that's, you know, but so kind of one of those rules or principles, like, you know, you should always have your subject looking towards the middle, you know, inwards instead of outwards. I don't always agree with that. I think that it can create an interesting type of tension. You know, if the figure is facing outside of the page, or you know, outside of the image area, and I think this one would work. You know, I would either say back up just a little bit. You know, you know, we kind of cut off the giraffe's ear, and you know, I know the giraffe is not as important as the child, but you know, we don't want to be cutting things off. And I think that you still could have gotten that same up really close look and just included a little bit more of the giraffe. You know, it's like if he's going to be in there, he either needs to be a little bit more significant as far as, you know, placement and scale, or you know, not in there very much at all. The third thing I would say, I know I told you two, but I thought of one more, may or may not work. I'm just trying to visualize it. You know, you may be running into trouble with your composition, because perhaps this one would work better in a vertical orientation. Um, Let me think about that for a second. You know, my first response was, oh, you should have turned your camera vertically. But, you know, the more I think about it, the more I think the better thing to do is I think this is a perfect pose for a horizontal, um, you know, horizontal composition. Um, I just don't think the placement, you know, just hit it spot on that. And also, the there's kind of that ashy quality again to the face. It may be, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the light, seems a little bit blown out right in here. And yeah, a little ashy. I think you could probably warm the skin up. If you look at how rich the warms are in the giraffe, um, and maybe that's part of it too. You've got this really warm kind of browns coming through in the giraffe, and then you've got this very kind of cool gray sweater. And you want her to contrast with the sweater instead of kind of blending in and matching it. And I think if you masked out everything but her face and maybe tried like a warming filter in Photoshop there's one of the adjustment layers that you can do is the temperature, and you can actually cool or warm an image. There's several presets available to you, or you can do it yourself. But there's a lot of warming filters that are kind of in the ranges that we see here on the giraffe, and that would create a little bit of continuity, I think. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay, this one's pretty good. I do also think either crop more of it off or go ahead and include the shoulder. Now, I really like this is I really like the gaze on this one and the seriousness of it. But yeah, I think that I would ask you to, just like the other one, step back just a little, because I think there's something interesting happening here with the sweater. Um, that I'd like to see a little bit more of, and then we wouldn't be cutting off her ear quite so much. And if you step back just a little bit, you can still get that 2/3 to 1/3 ratio, no problem. And I definitely think this part is working. This is a great example of, I would kind of say from where my cursor is, from here over, it's great. It's just, your problem area, in my opinion, is just right in here. But from here over, really good. I think that you're a little bit blown out. Your highlighted areas on the sweater, little bit blown out. It's just like I was saying with the dark areas on the hair before. Even if it's super, super light, there still needs to be some detail. And this is the kind of thing that you'd have to mask everything else out. You couldn't just edit all of this whole image together. But so getting a little bit less here, and just like before, I also feel like she just looks a little pale again there. Now, I didn't feel that way on the first picture. I'm going to go back and look at that first one again. Um, hmm. Well, actually, it could use a little bit of warming up here as well. I didn't really notice it, but I really think it has to do with the sweater she was wearing, and maybe a better idea for something like this is maybe put a more colorful sweater on her, because I think what's happening is the gray is kind of reflecting up onto her skin a little bit. We do get reflected light off of whatever it is we're wearing, and also because it was an overcast day, to get her to pop out from the background, a bright orange or a bright pink. Either of those would contrast very nicely with the blue undershirt that she's wearing. So, and see, we don't have those problems here because it's a black and white. And but yeah, I would say that, on all of these, I think that that the face just looks a little bit ashy. And that would be just super, super easy, to just kind of warm it up a little bit. You're kind of trying to figure out your white balance here, because this stuff looks fantastic. It's not too yellowy. It's got, you can tell that you've got some blues going on in there, but generally we want to have the more warmth on the skin. So those are my suggestions. But and also this one might be that the eyes are not in as good focus as they could be. I feel like it's very in focus right here, It's kind of hard to tell. I probably would need to zoom in. Maybe it is. Maybe it's in focus. But yeah, really, really nice and a very um, willing model. Okay, that is just darling. That is just adorable. Let's see here. I'm trying to, yeah, I'm kind of losing her a little bit. Like I wish there was a little more contrast between her and the yellow thing. But honestly, I really think a lot of this would be if she was wearing a different sweater. Wouldn't it be nice to have these bright colors here, and have another bright color that played with these colors over here. Super bright green, super, saturated yellow, super saturated reddish orange, and then everything that should be warm is kind of gray. And so all the more important, if you're going to have something really, really saturated in there, and this is the kind of thing you're not going to know until you get out there and try it. And maybe even the kind of thing you could say, okay, well, I wish that these looked a little different. Why don't we change your shirt and try this again, or something like that. They're great pictures, but I'm just trying to come up with a couple suggestions to make them really, really awesome pictures. And I think that the face is important enough that you could probably zoom in a little bit more and lose part of the arm. I think that the important thing is the face. This one would look good on a vertical orientation. I can see this one fitting very nicely, into a vertical orientation. You don't need all that yellow. You'll get the point across. If it was cropped right here, that would get the point across, and it would buy you a little bit more space up here, and, maybe a little space down here to either include more of the elbow, or crop it out and just get that much closer to the face. Not really sure, but again, it's a great pose. Really, yeah, it's really cute, very, very cute. That's nice. Okay, now this one I think is right up there with the first one as far as image quality. Whoops, sorry about that. That's not what I meant to do. Darn it. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to look at this one. What is it about this one and this one that seemed to make them strongest? Hmm. Well, for one thing, you're in really close. So some of the things that I was pointing out in the others that I didn't feel were working quite as well are not a problem because they're cropped out. It doesn't really matter. Her sweater doesn't really matter. Um, so much in something like this because you're just seeing a little tiny bit of it. I still think it'd be nice if it was like a bright fuchsia, something like that, but it's not creating a compositional problem the way it was in some of the other ones. I love the composition. This is just a really nice kind of division of, stuff going on, empty space. It's fine to crop out. If you're going to crop the body, go ahead and crop it. You can crop the top of the head off, just make sure you take a lot of it and not just a little tiny bit. And again, we've got this kind of off the frame gaze that just like in the first one, it looks like she's looking at something up in the sky, and it's like, it makes you kind of wonder, is there a balloon up there, or a bird, or what, but she seems to be looking at something that we'll never know what it is. So we have to use our imaginations for that. And as with the others, I still think that because your background is so saturated, it's dulling the skin tones down again. It might be that if the background wasn't as, you know, bright as it is, that by comparison the skin tones wouldn't look quite as ashy. But to carry this off, you probably would have to do something, you know, to the areas in here to get them to hold their own, so that they're less neutral, and hold their own against this really, really vibrant background. And this is fixable. You know, this is something that you can very easily, you know, go back into your raw file, mask everything else off, and play around with it. But I would say this one and the one with the swing and the black and white one, I think these are your three, you know, top pictures. Just really, really nice. I'm glad that I had you guys do this assignment. I hadn't ever assigned this before, and I'm really pleased to see you guys not just getting, you know, a picture of somebody, but getting a picture of their essence, their being. So nice work. I'm going to go to the last frame, and we'll read the conclusion. And I would just like to say I think you did a wonderful job.